Action Beaver and the Missing Fossils. Action Beaver stood atop the highest dam, his eyes scanning the horizon as dark storm clouds rolled in. The roar of the approaching flood wave was unmistakable, a thunderous reminder of nature's power. With swift precision, he sounded the alarm, his deep, commanding voice echoing through the valley. "Beavers, to your stations! Reinforce the dams and secure the lodges!" His fur bristled with determination as he directed his fellow beavers, each one springing into action with logs, mud, and unyielding resolve. The clock was ticking, but with Action Beaver leading the charge, they faced the imminent deluge. But Eliza McGyver didn't know anything about floodwaves, not yet anyway. She was more interested in fossils, and lucky for her, she lived in a museum that housed some of the best fossils in the whole world. The collection at the Fortescue Institute was unusual, as it housed the fossils of many of the strange creatures that had never been seen before. Want to see a trilobite or an ammonite? You'd be out of luck. But you could see the strange war-tailed shells, spiral shells that housed the hexalauropods, who inched across the oceans on long willowy stalks. Plumegill pates from the enormous bird like aviophytes, whose wingspan was over a mile long. Trihorn skulls, which were a bit like triceratops but the size of sparrows, and the glittering glimmerfill spines from the luminara, a bioluminescent fish that were thought to come in every colour of the rainbow. Eliza knew so much about fossils that she would tell the visiting school children all about these fantastic beasts, and people would come from far and wide to see them for themselves. Well, I say see them. They were locked in dusty old cases under the orders of the owner of the museum, although people would crane their necks to catch a glimpse in the dingy gloom of the room. The rare finds were much more interesting than a boring old trilobite. Sorry, trilobites. The owner of the museum was a distant relative of Eliza's, a man named Barnabas B. And whilst she was friendly and fun, he was not. He didn't think that museums should be fun, and people certainly shouldn't be touching anything or getting too close or breathing or looking too hard at the exhibits in case they wore out. But things were going to change. A lot. Remember the flood wave at the start? Well, it was getting bigger and bigger and closer to the city walls. Action Beaver was, as the name suggests, a beaver, and one with a certain amount of superpowers. He was using every last power he had to rouse all the beavers to the cause, building bigger and bigger dams to quell the flood waves. "It's no good," squeaked the others. "We've run out of rocks and sticks." Action Beaver thought fast. Every rock counted, and he suddenly had a brilliant idea. Eliza was just locking up the museum when she took one last look around. She thought she heard the scampering of claws or something. She crept into the dark. There was a clink and a clank, and she threw on the lights, and all the fossils had disappeared. That wasn't all. Frozen in the light were several hundred beavers who were looking very furtive and guilty, and trying to hide all the fossils by shoving them inside their fur or under their hats. And who should be carrying the largest fossils but Action Beaver? "What are you doing with our fossils?" yelled Eliza. "Actually, back up. First question, who are you?" Action Beaver pulled himself up to his entire height, which would have been a bit more impressive if he hadn't been, well, beaver-sized. "I am none other than Action Beaver, and I'm doing you a jolly big favour by saving the world, I'll have you know." "You're doing a jolly good job by stealing all of our fossils." "We need them. The dams are failing. Every rock counts. There's no time to lose." "What do you mean?" But then she could hear the distant whoosh and swish of the flood wave. It was getting closer every minute. "Flood wave!" yelled Action Beaver, spinning into action, becoming at least 3 times his size, which was a bit more impressive. Eliza knew she had to help. Quick as a flash, Eliza took a brachiosaur bone and smashed the last few cases of the fossils, the precious pieces spilling onto the floor. "Beavers, ready!" yelled Action Beaver. He let out the beaver call, and in a flash the hall was full of even more beavers, rushing to grab the rocks and to set about building the biggest dam the world had ever seen. Someone was not helping. Someone was actually furious. It was Barnabas B. "What in the devil do you think that you're doing? What are you doing with my precious fossils? Stop it all at once!" spluttered Barnabas B, who was doing his best to prise fossils from beaver paws, but not really succeeding. Beavers can be very determined when there's a dam to be built. Action Beaver flew through the air and spun around and around Barnabas B until he was so dizzy he fell into a heap. And then, just to be on the safe side, Action Beaver locked him in one of the fossil cases. Eliza giggled. He deserved to see what it was like to be locked up too. Thousands of fossils flew out of the museum in a whirl of beaverly activity, and Action Beaver was wasting no time building the biggest dam ever at the outskirts of the city. "It's coming! The floodwave!" came the cry just in time. The final rocks were in place. The tremendous wave, 100 meters tall at least, came crashing through and up against the dam, but it held firm. And then the waters subsided and a cheer went up. "You've done it! You've saved the city!" shouted Eliza, and the beavers carried Action Beaver on their shoulders in delight. Now the fossils were so tightly packed into the dam, they couldn't be taken back to the museum, even if Barnabas B had wanted to. And do you know what? It turned out to be a good thing. Because instead of being locked away in dusty cases, the beautiful rare fossils could easily be seen by everyone, just by visiting the dam, which became famous. And what about old Barnabas B then? Well, as far as I know, he's still stuck in that cabinet in the museum, doing a rubbish impression of a trilobite. And no one wants to see a boring old trilobite, do they? It's a brilliant team effort this week on Story Quest. Huge thanks to Thomas for coming up with the character Action Beaver. We loved it so much, so wonderfully random and super, that we put it together with Eliza's fantastic suggestion, The Missing Fossils, to come up with Action Beaver and the Missing Fossils. Thank you both for your help. If you have any ideas that you want in a story, send it over to funkidslive.com. Elyza, you are our story master this week, but what gave you the idea for the missing fossils?
So me and my family, we go to Dorset quite a lot, and obviously Mary Anning lived in Lyme Regis, which is in Dorset, and we always go fossil hunting when we're there. And I just randomly one night I was listening to Story Quest and I was like, "Mum, I would like you to apply for me to have a story written about me losing all of my favourite fossils."
Wow, so have you got any favourite fossils so far?
So I have a thing called an ammonite, and it's very swirly, and this one is actually my dad's, and he found it and he gave it to me, and it's one of my very lucky fossils.
Wow, so it looks a bit like a snail's shell, doesn't it? Coiling round and round. When you're in Dorset, when you go with your family often, do you love fossil hunting? Because that's on the Jurassic coast, so we know there are loads of fossils there.
Yeah, my favourite fossil is probably the S, but I adore going there. It's amazing.
I can imagine. Well, it's been a real joy. It's been a lot of fun for me to chat to you, Eliza, all about Eliza and the missing fossils. You've been a brilliant story master. Thank you so much. Got an idea for a story? Tell us the title at funkidslive.com/storyquest and we could bring your story to life. For a new story each week, make sure you hit subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode.